Well, we left off at the end of Genesis 22. That's where we're going to pick up tonight. Most of our time is going to be Genesis chapter 23. We're going to get the end of 22. Before we start, I just want to emphasize a couple of things to get us on the same page. One is that I have been in and out of these classrooms, kind of bouncing back and forth. So maybe some of the things I say tonight might be emphasized already, but if that's the case, then we'll emphasize them even more. The point of the book of Genesis is that God is giving the people the land. This book is written to wandering Israelites who needed reminded of who their God is. When we consider that context, that theme of the book being written to people who are wandering, needing reminded, God will give you the land. It's going to make Genesis 23, this bit about genealogies at the end of 22, this whole discourse about a person and where they're going to be buried, that might seem inconsequential. But when we look at chapter 23 in its proper context, understanding who is coming from who, we're going to understand this much deeper, hopefully, as well as its significance and how it affects our faith today. So I don't want to jump ahead to the end of this too quickly, but the whole time I want you to be thinking about the audience this is written to. Again, that's wandering Israelites. But then also, it's written to you. Think about yourself and how this applies to your faith. It looks different. You're not a wandering Israelite, but we're going to find a lot of parallels between the faith that Abraham shows in Genesis 23 and our faith today. We're going to see God's powerful faith and his fulfilled promises, even if we don't see them in our lifetime. God is faithful in death and even past death. That's tonight. That's Genesis 23. Let's start with a word of prayer. Our Father in heaven, thank you for this good day. You've blessed us so much to be able to come here and study your word. Thank you for your book of Genesis and for our ability to study it tonight. Help us to make applications to our life, learning lots about your word and your people, of course, but more than that, learning how it affects our relationship with you today and what we can do to show more faith. Thank you for the examples that are here and for the examples that are in this room of faithful Christians who want to know you together. Thank you for blessing us. Please bless our study tonight. We say a special prayer for those who are on our sick list. We have a lengthy list right now, especially the mothers who are expecting right now. Please be with them and all of our travelers and bring them back together so we can keep growing closer to you together. Thank you for hearing our prayer. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. So Dan left us off right at the end of chapter 22. And so I am excited to get to jump in here and teach this week while he is gone. The end of 22 is just going to be verses 20 through 24. I am hoping for some help with some readers tonight, although I might not make you guys read this first section because it's genealogies and names and things like that. If someone wants it, they can take it. Otherwise, I'll just start by reading that, and you'll see the questions on screen. What do we learn about God's people? What is significant about this person's family? That's going to launch us into chapter 23. And remember what happens earlier in chapter 22. This is a very well-remembered chapter, Abraham and Isaac, Mount Moriah, but the end probably gets left off a lot of times. The end is just as important. So let's read it. Does someone want it? No. Oh, Tim wants it. Tim, go ahead. 20 through 24.
Now after these things it was told to Abraham, behold, Milcah also has borne children to your brother Nahor. Uz is firstborn, Buz is brother, Kemuel the father of Aram, Chesed, Ezo, Pildash, Jiplah, and Bethuel. Bethuel fathered Rebekah. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother. Moreover, his concubine, whose name was Reumah, bore Tebah, Gaham, Tahash, and Maacah. That's my best stab at it.
Yeah, flawless. I thought you were playing a recording. That was great. Genealogies are hard for that very reason. They're goofy names, maybe ones we don't recognize, and so we just kind of get past it and go from story to story. But you're going to learn tonight, I really like genealogies and the way they compress information. So what do you notice? Is there anything here and you notice? A name, a relationship, something that's noticeable, something that's significant about Nahor and his family? Cindy, she wants to say something.
Rebecca was born through.
Yeah, Rebecca.
And
Yes. Okay, so that's significant here. Tim?
That's like a flash forward. The reader's already knowing who she is.
Yeah. That's important. Very good. Okay, Rebecca comes through here. And that's what I'm getting at, where sometimes our Bible, we can think of it like an accordion, where when we get these stories, it's easy to see this big part. And you start thinking about Jacob and Esau, you're just isolating their story and you forget where they come from because you're looking at their story and the stew and all the things. But when you bring the accordion in, you just get a genealogy, you just get name after name. It kind of compresses the information and you just get the people. Not the story, just the people. And why should I care about this? Well, if you're a wandering Israelite, you would really care about where Rebecca comes from. So now we get this kind of core of people, a lot of names we don't really recognize, but then in the middle of it, we get, oh, Rebecca. We know her. That's important. That's significant. Okay, good. Keep going. Larry?
Well, Aram became a great nation, located mostly to the north, and had some fighting against Israel.
Yes, they did.
Later on.
Right, so I think we could call this like the core of Aram, kind of like how we recognize the tribes of Israel. This is kind of like their core, at least a lot of their names listed. And you're right, you may remember 1 Chronicles 18:6, where David makes this nation pay tribute. There's a lot of fighting that happens, and sometimes this is translated Syria, and other times like the nation of Aram. This is a significant people. It had a lot of influence, actually, like the language Aramaic was a very, very big deal. It's in our Bibles in little places. It's also the language Jesus would have spoke. This is a significant people. It's important. And of course, they're going to keep running into these folks later on, even to David. Tim?
Also, just the intro here. Now, after these things, it was told to Abraham. So all of this news apparently came to Abraham at once. You know, he's been separated for a while, perhaps. I don't know. It was just interesting the way that.
And it's told to Abraham.
Yeah.
Well, that is interesting. Yeah, verse 20. Now it came to pass after these things that it was told to Abraham. And if we jump ahead to chapter 24, the things that happened there, it's going to make sense that Abraham knew about his family and who was involved where. So that does make sense. Abraham hears this news. It's brought to him. We'll look at it like this. So this is Abraham's brother, Nahor, 12 sons, 8 sons with his wife, who is / his niece. We'll pass by that. 4 sons with his concubine. What's really significant, Larry brought out, this is the core of their people, of the people of Aram. What I think is most significant, Cindy brought out, is Isaac and Jacob find their wives from Nahor's descendants. That's really important. And like we brought out with Rebecca, God is working even when we don't see it. There's a lot going on in Genesis 22 and then in 23. And yet now just real quick, we get this mention of Rebecca. And that's really important. We remembered Abraham and Isaac is spared. The next thing we read about is his wife and how she comes through her family. That's really important. Something my mom talks about all the time is how she's been praying for my wife, like ever since I was a very little kid. That's really, really important. You think about this person who's been spared in this dramatic story. It makes sense the next thing we read about is kind of a flash forward to the end. Hey, Rebecca, she's coming. His wife is coming, and where we're going to get this promise is going to keep growing. That's really exciting, really significant. I explained why I like genealogies. They connect people very clearly, very, very clearly. Without the story, it just kind of compresses it, and we can pick out these names and see what's going to be important. So Nahor's son has a daughter, Rebecca. Rebecca is chosen to marry Isaac. That's coming next week or maybe a couple weeks after. Also, we'll read that Rebecca's brother is Laban. He's important. Rebecca's son, Jacob, will go to Haran and fall in love with Laban's daughter, Rachel. And so because Abraham, in chapter 24, that you guys will get to later, he wants to seek a wife for Isaac from his kindred. So these things come and are told to Abraham, and so he's going to send his servant for Isaac to go get a wife for him from his family. And so because of that, this nation is intertwined together, this country or this people of Aram with the Israelites. So if you were wondering, it'd be exciting to know where you come from, who was married to who begot who. So don't pass by these genealogies. I think they really are interesting. There's obviously more interesting things than just names, but don't just assume that you're not going to know any of the names. Dig in, find a name you know, and connect it. You'll find some significant points. Genealogies really connect people clearly. More thoughts here on chapter 22 before we launch into 23. No more thoughts on genealogies? Okay, we'll keep going. That's chapter 22, and remember, we're keeping in its context. I think it will be significant as we keep going.
I think it also helps for this group of wandering Israelites that Abraham's family is not from Canaan. They're going to Canaan, but they've been told other things about the Canaanites and that they're going to destroy them, and such. And it's like Abraham and Jacob came from there. So aren't these our family? No, they're not your family.
Okay, so Tammy points out, if you were wandering, remembering that God told you he was going to give you the land, it would be nice to know something about it. You realize, they're not from here. Or even Father Abraham, we're going to see, doesn't have the land. And that's what 23 is going to point out in this really small way. That's going to be exciting if you're a wandering Israelite. So would someone read for me just verses 1 and 2 of chapter 23? Chapter 23, verses 1 and 2. Who wants it? Or Megan, go ahead.
Sarah lived 127 years. These were the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died at Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. Then Abraham went in to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her.
Okay, good, right there. One commentary that I read that was interesting, and I think I fact-checked pretty well, is she's the only woman in the Bible to have her years explicitly stated when she dies. 127 years. That's a long time. It's 101 years older than Will. That's how long she lives. She dies in this place, and it's listed there. She's the only woman in the Bible who has that listing. So she is significant. I think she's worth our time to think about. Maybe you guys have talked about this already, so it's easy review. Where else in Scripture is Sarah mentioned? And is it favorable, good or bad? Mumbling. Where do we read about her? We can think of a couple. Galatians. Oh, Galatians 3. Yeah, Galatians 3.
Allegory between her and Hagar, for Israel and
Good.
the law and
Yeah.
the coming of the Gentiles into Christ.
Good. Okay, Tammy says Galatians 3, the allegory of who's Ishmael, who's Isaac, who's Hagar, who's Sarah. Very good. She's mentioned in Galatians 3, again, in that positive light. Who is the daughter of Sarah, or are we Hagar? That's definitely in the Bible, and she's definitely seen in a positive way there. Keep thinking about places we see her, because it's not just Galatians 3. But this,
11.
Hebrews 11, yes, good. Favorable again, yes.
Romans 9.
Romans 9, oh, I didn't have Romans 9. What's Romans 9? Maybe I'm forgetting.
Romans 9:9. For this is what the promise said, about this time next year I will return, and Sarah shall have a son, and not only so, but also when Rebekah had conceived children by one man, our forefather Isaac, though they were not yet born, had done nothing either good or bad.
Okay, good, yeah. So we get more imagery of these older women bearing children. Again, it's good. Like Hebrews 11 points out in a similar way, it was by faith she conceives. She's all over the place in the Bible in these favorable ways. She's a big deal. Remember Father Abraham for good reason, but don't forget Sarah. I think she's listed here with those 127 years for a reason. Something else that seems significant to me. Oh, but first, go ahead, Tim.
Oh, I was just curious, so I looked up, in Genesis 12, I think is where Abraham left Haran. He was 75, she was about 10 years younger.
Right.
So let's say 65. So she traveled with him for over 60 years, and I just think that's noteworthy.
That is noteworthy. That's a long time, all the way up to 127 years, over 60 years of being with Abraham. John, did you still have something?
I was going to say her laughing in Genesis 18.
Oh, yeah. Yes. No, but you did laugh. She's remembered for that. That's how We see the name, we see the faith. She laughs. She says, there's no way this is going to happen. And of course it does. And I think I remember the laughing the most because it preaches well and it's kind of a memorable story. But past that, we get so much good about Sarah. So think about this. She is the first person of the covenant family to die. Again, thinking about Genesis 22, it'd be really cool to think about your son being spared. Isaac lives. He's the son of promise. Like, okay, God really is faithful. This is awesome. And then the next thing that happens is your wife dies. You think like, oh, that's a bummer. I thought this wasn't, I thought we're going to see the promise fulfilled for all of us. But then she dies without seeing it fulfilled. And so her burial site, I think, is significant as well. We're going to see that more later. She's going to be buried in the place that we're about to read about, and a lot of the patriarchs will follow suit. It's going to be a really important imagery for the Israelites. But Sarah is remembered as a role model of faith. Even though she laughs, even though she kind of messes up at times, she's still a role model of faith. If I can get just a couple of readers to grab these. We got Hebrews 11:11. Actually, could someone grab Isaiah 51? I really like that one. Raise a hand when you're there. Isaiah 51 talks about Sarah. This is one I had forgotten about. Jonathan, go ahead.
Where? 51.
1 and 2.
1 and 2. Listen to me, you who pursue righteousness and who seek the Lord. Look to the rock from which you were hewn, and to the quarry from which you were dug. Look to Abraham your father, and to Sarah who bore you. For he was but one when I called him, that I might bless him and multiply him.
Good. So we're told explicitly to look to Sarah. That's a big deal. That is a big deal. We think about looking up to people. Abraham makes sense. He's saying Sarah makes just as much sense. I called him as one, and then it multiplies. Hebrews 11:11 was called out by faith. Sarah herself also received strength to conceive. 1 Peter 3, you guys would have covered out here just a little while ago, where she's remembered for her trust in God and the way that she followed Abraham. She is a very important figure of faith. Especially in her death, she doesn't get to see the fulfilled promise. She's not even going to see the little bit of it that we're going to get at Machpelah. But she dies in faith, and she is remembered for it. So don't just remember her for the laughing. Remember her for the faith and for what she sets up. Her burial site is going to be the burial place for Abraham, then Isaac and Rebekah, and Jacob and Leah as well. So let's read about that burial place. It's a really fun story. It's interesting just in itself, but then the implications of it, I think, are really important too. Does someone want to read those 7 verses for us? 3 through 9. Genesis 23, verses 3 through 9. David, go ahead.
Then Abraham stood up from before his dead and spoke to the sons of Heth, saying, I am a foreigner and a visitor among you. Give me property for a burial place among you, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. And the sons of Heth answered Abraham, saying to him, Hear us, my lord. You are a mighty prince among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of burial places. None of us will withhold from you his burial place, that you may bury your dead. Then Abraham stood up and bowed himself to the people of the land, the sons of Heth, and spoke with them, saying, If it is your wish that I bury my dead out of my sight, hear me, and meet with Ephron, the son of Zohar, for me, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which is at the end of his field. Let him give it to me at the full price as property for a burial place among you.
Okay, good. There is the start. We'll get the negotiations next. But first is just the request. Here's the request from Abraham. You tell me, what stands out about this request for his burial? What he says, what they said. Say it again. Full price? Full price. Yeah. We're going to get to negotiations next, but he's got no intentions of negotiating. It's that one. Full price. Randy?
He recognizes that he's a foreigner in that land.
Yeah.
So that's not his homeland, so to speak.
Right away, too. Yeah, it'd be interesting if it started with him saying, hey, remember Genesis 12 and 15? Like, God told me, like, this is mine. Like, I'm taking this cave. But he doesn't. I think it's humble what he starts with. Like, I am a foreigner and a stranger in this land. That's how he opens. I think it's humble. I think Randy does too. What else stands out? Larry?
Well, Abraham wanted to bury his deceased wife and not cremate her. Cremation was already practiced among some of the heathen peoples.
Interesting. So he chooses burial
Yes.
in an honorable way too. He could have said, we'll just do this what the heathens do or what pagans might have been doing, but he chooses burial. And like we were pointing out, later on, the Israelites are going to go through a lot of effort to bury more people here at Machpelah. So this is significant. He wants to bury her in a specific place. Josh?
Well, I think also going back to how he introduced himself to the foreigner, because of God's command for him to be a sojourner, he was always going to be a foreigner. So I think it was that in itself posed a difficult situation for him, that he wanted to create this not bargain, big an offer that they couldn't do, so he could do this thing.
Yes, he is sure. And I like the way you put that. It's a foreigner in his own land. Like he knew it was his. That's difficult. But he's still going to buy it at full price. Lots of hands. Megan first.
I think it's interesting that the Hittites call him like a prince among them. But I think why would they say that? Well, one, Abraham is really, really rich. He has a lot of animals. He has a lot of people. Like his land, it doesn't say it very much, but him and Lot had to split because of how much they had.
Yeah.
And he's this kind of moving army almost of animals and people. And so he's really rich, but also I don't think it's just that. I have a feeling it's the way that he interacts with people around him. And you see it in how he's saying, I'll give you full price. So they have respect for him.
Yes.
Is what it seems. Not only is he powerful in that he has a lot of possessions, but they're willing to honor him with this choicest of burial sites. And so I think that as far as Abraham's actions seems to show that he's really respected. He's a man of honor
Yes.
and integrity.
Right. Very true. He definitely has lots of money we're about to see, but it's a certain way that he acts too. So there's no mention here of his money being bad. It's what he does with it. And clearly they honor him for that. Jonathan?
I mean, on that note, as wealthy as he is, he never bought any other land. He didn't. He's a foreigner, because he had the wealth to buy land. If he trusted in God to give it to him, and now he's buying something, but it's a burial ground for his wife and for him and his family in the future. Again, looking forward to the promise and not trying to attain for himself the thing that God has told me to do.
Yeah, that's interesting. When you consider the negotiation process we called out, they agreed right away. It would have made sense for him to be like, oh, it's that easy? Well, how about 800 shekels and I take all this too? That would have made a lot of sense. But instead he stays focused on this one honorable duty that he has, not just using his wealth to take matters into his own hands. He's not taking matters into his own hands anymore. Really good, Jonathan. I didn't think about that. More thoughts. I think we're hitting it pretty hard. So he opens with this saying, he is a stranger and a foreigner among them. Hebrews 11, we're going to be all over tonight. But this is the message in Hebrews 11, pointing out the faith that Abraham had was in his heavenly home that was waiting for him. So one, a stranger because he's from Ur of the Chaldeans. But further than that, he's waiting for something even better. That's what Hebrews 11 keeps getting at. They had a hope much later of this heavenly home that God was going to give him. So right now he's really, really a stranger. And I hear pages turning. Maybe you're going to Psalm 39:12. That's David really echoing the same message. We see it in other places, but this one calls it out really well. He refers to himself and his fathers who were all strangers. He says, a sojourner as all my fathers were. This is kind of the mindset of the people. Even fast forwarding to David, when a lot has changed land and wealth-wise, he still considers himself, like his fathers, a sojourner. And so, of course, that's how Abraham opens up his request. I'm a stranger, I'm a sojourner, and they immediately agree. That was interesting to me. Just immediately, they're like, yep, they even call him Lord. The Hittites, or the sons of Heth, whichever one you might have, they say yes. For whatever reason, maybe like what Megan was pointing out, they are on board with this idea. He has a specific place in mind for it too. I thought that was interesting. Like, I wonder why. Like, why does he just immediately say, that one, I want the cave of Machpelah? He'd been there before. He'd been in this area at least in chapter 13, verse 18. He'd been in this area. Maybe he'd seen the cave. That cave, like the etymology of the word Machpelah, that David said very well, seems to mean something like double cave, like multiple cave. Most commentators that I read seem to think it just refers to like the entrances or the burials that are available. Either way, it's the cave of Machpelah. He sees it. He wants it. Like Russell pointed out, he's willing to pay full price for it. He's about to negotiate very poorly, but he wants it and he's going to get it in this very honorable way. That's what I grabbed from these first requests. We'll get to the negotiations next, but we're doing good on time. Are there more thoughts here in this first part? Okay, then we'll keep going on this negotiation. Abraham and Ephron. Ephron is the son of Zohar, so if I say Zephron, I wrote it down once. I'm talking about Ephron. He's talking to Ephron, who owns this land. In verses 10 through 16, we get this negotiation. You see my question on the board. Just describe it, and what do you think? Do they seem like they're all being fair? I saw many different hypotheses about this negotiation. I'll tell you my take later, but first I want you to tell me. Does it seem like everyone's being fair and respectful here? Verse 10, Now Ephron dwelt among the sons of Heth, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the presence of the sons of Heth, all who entered at the gate of his city, saying, No, my lord, hear me. I give you the field and the cave that is in it. I give it to you in the presence of the sons of my people. I give it to you. Bury your dead. Then Abraham bowed himself down before the people of the land, and he spoke to Ephron in the hearing of the people of the land, saying, If you will give it, please hear me. I will give you money for the field. Take it from me, and I will bury my dead there. And Ephron answered Abraham, saying to him, My lord, listen to me. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between you and me? So bury your dead. And Abraham listened to Ephron, and Abraham weighed out the silver for Ephron, which he had named in the hearing of the sons of Heth. 400 shekels of silver, currency of the merchants. Okay, there's the negotiation. Describe it. What do you notice? Does it seem like everyone's being fair here? Larry?
They're being diplomatic.
Okay, that's a good word.
What's money between friends? By the way, it's worth this much.
Yeah. Right, it's no big deal. Like, what is it? I think that's very well put. Roger?
I think he doesn't want to just name a price, not knowing what really the thing is worth. And he says, well, what's that among us? You know, what's 400 shekels of gold?
Uh-huh.
And silver, you know, I mean, it's just, there's where he gets his price. And he knows what the guy wants, and he's willing to do it.
Yes.
Had he said 800, he would have probably get it.
I think you're right. Yeah, so he names a price, I don't know, the fair market value, and he says, okay, like there it is. What's money between friends? Diplomatic seems to be the theme we're seeing. Does someone have a different take? Tammy?
Even at the beginning, this looks kind of an interesting, I think Abraham knew who Zephron was, knew what he looked like, and probably knew he was there. But he addresses all the sons of Heth that are sitting in the gate, and specifically names Ephron. And then Ephron's kind of like, yeah, here I am.
I thought you'd want to talk to me. Yeah, he could have gone straight to him, ignored this kind of council setup, like, hey, like I want your cave. But instead he goes through it diplomatically and then gets to Ephron. And then he kind of emerges. I don't know, it kind of seems like a Monopoly game when, like, you know, you have like two of it and he's got the third one. You're like, all right, you've come to negotiate. Now, this guy knows he's got something. But instead of it being this like brutal kind of give and take, it's diplomatic. He says, he names the price, but then Abraham just agrees to it. He doesn't counter anything like that. Does that strike anyone as odd? Not so much. Okay, it strikes a lot of commentators as odd what happens here. I think it makes perfect sense. I think they're being diplomatic and showing respect for each other. It's kind of funny to say, hey, like, what's money between us, but here's the price. I think there's there is a rabbit hole that I went down of like ancient burial practices and the nuances of it, but we can understand this today. Even thinking about something like a funeral, where there is like a fee that's required for the caterer or the venue or anything else, where you know someone is mourning and they want to be respectful, but you want to be polite. So there's kind of this give-take. I don't think there's anything that complicated going on here, except many commentators suggest that Ephron is exploiting Abraham's mourning for a bigger payout. I read this, okay? Ephron reveals his greed and dishonesty as he tries to exploit Abraham's situation and urgency. He also adds a subtle pressure by saying that the price is nothing between him and that Abraham should bury his dead quickly. I think that's a little bit harsh. I don't really know where they're getting that from. Another commentator that I read were mentioning that this seems like way too high of a price for a field. In Jeremiah 32, he buys a field for 17 silver shekels. In 2 Samuel 24, David buys this like whole temple mount for 50 silver shekels. Silver shekels. Whenever people make those kind of comparisons, though, I always do think it's odd. Like, how are we accounting for inflation or supply and demand or any other way that currency could have changed? But a lot of people think that he is exploiting him here. I don't. Jonathan, what do you think?
I mean, just some things off the top of my head to consider. The land that Jeremiah bought under Israeli and under Jewish law would have gone back to the previous owners at the end of 7 years.
Okay. Different rules in place.
So you pay a price based on how close you are to that returning of the land to the family. And the temple for the Jews was for the Jews. Yes, David bought it, but it was still for the nation.
Them, yeah.
And then here's a man, I don't really see him exploiting, but like this is a permanent purchase. This is Abraham's, and we see that generations down after Israel has left and back. Like, well, I mean, they have to reclaim it because they left. But
Yes.
so this is a permanent transaction. This is it in the end of it.
Yes. I think you're very right. Randy?
So even before this negotiation, Abraham laid out the terms. So with the sons of Heth, and he says that if it's your wish that I bury my dead out of my sight, hear me and meet with Ephron the son of Zohar for me. So he says that, and then that he may give me the cave, which he has, which is at the end of this field, let it give to me at full price. So he already kind of laid out the terms even before he met with Ephron.
With the guy.
I'm kind of with you. I don't know how big this property was.
Yeah.
Maybe it was way bigger than those other ones you mentioned, and that's why the price was 8 times as much. So
Right, maybe, or who knows, but it seems like there should be something that says it if it's really dishonest. Josh?
Well, also to make the point, like, he's a powerful person, not a fool. Like, he's not approaching this like that. It feels like they know that he's not a fool also, so it just seems like it is between people that know each other, diplomatic, trying to make a fair deal.
Yes. Oh man, lots of hands. Jonathan?
It's noted that they do this transaction in front of all of this entire group of people. I don't think if he wants to be kind of, dishonest about it and get a
Huge payout.
to like scream or scalpel for it, he wouldn't want to do that and ruin his own reputation.
Good.
The council.
Yes. Maybe bringing it back to the Monopoly board. Has that ever happened in a game where like someone's playing for the first time? Like, oh, I'll give you, Baltic for Boardwalk. And then everyone at the table's like, no, like, why, don't do that. Like this person was willing to do it, but the council was like, no, you cannot do that. I think that's a good point. There's a whole council here that would have shut something unfair down. Megan?
And again, it was noted that it was one of the choicest burial sites there. And burial practices were one of the most important things to ancient people of the time because it was where it was a generational thing. It would be the land that was in their family for
A long
forevermore,
time, yeah.
basically. And it would be where they would bury their family every single person would be put in there. And so this wasn't just something that was temporarily bought, or like Jonathan was saying, this was permanent, and it's familial, and so it's something that they will continue to use, and is such an important practice to both the Hittite people and to Abraham's people. It wasn't like he was just buying some land, some cropland. He was buying of his family's burial
Permanent.
plots.
Okay, very good. I think we're on the same page. Last comment on the burial place.
I mean, it's kind of a brief two-part.
Okay.
One, Abraham was never one to accept anything from anybody because he did not want to be owing anything to anybody except for to God.
Good.
And so he was set on paying. That doesn't come up here, but it comes up in the other times. Now, also, on what Megan was just saying, if the guy had given him a deal, what does that say about his respect for his past wife, for Sarah? You know, oh, you're giving me a deal so I can skimp out on paying for this site for my family and for my wife. That in itself is disrespectful to the people you're trying to honor in this very act.
Right. So it doesn't take the detour that we've taken now to explain that, but you can see that today. Like, it would be honorable to pay full price for the venue, for the funeral or the burial place or anything else. And what really launches us into the next point is he's making sure there's no mistakes about this. It's not a favor. It's not an exception to the rule. It is his. He buys it full price, fair market value, no tricks, no foreclosures. It is his. He's got it. And so what we do know for sure, what really matters, Abraham is showing respect and generosity during mourning. He's not trying to get out of anything. He's trying to make sure this land is for me and my family to bury Sarah. So let's quickly go here. 17 through 20 will close us out. So the field of Ephron, which was in Machpelah, which was before Mamre, the field and the cave which was in it, and all the trees that were in the field, which were within all the surrounding borders, were deeded to Abraham as possession in the presence of the sons of Heth, before all who went in at the gate of the city. And after this, Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah, before Mamre, that is, Hebron, in the land of Canaan. So the field and the cave that is in it were deeded to Abraham by the sons of Heth as property for a burial place. So over and over again, more times than I've ever said deeded, comes up. It's deeded to him. This is no exception, like Jonathan was saying. This is his, it's honorable. This is theirs. And so considering that legality and that permanence of it, if you're that wandering Israelite reading this or hearing this, what are you thinking? What's standing out to you about this? Field of Machpelah and the cave in it. Larry?
Well, obviously this is where Sarah died, so it was local. But Hebron was the place that Abraham chose to settle when he divided from his nephew Lot.
Right.
And Abraham built an altar to the Lord at that location.
Right.
And the land, besides being a field, you might assume that it's a farm, but it's got this grove of trees, the oaks at Mamre, which seems to be pretty significant as a group of trees somehow.
Yes, they keep getting named there, like you mentioned in chapter 13, by the terebinth trees, which are in Hebron. Like it's not nothing. He builds that altar there. This is land that he knew and wanted. Tim?
And it was it was obviously remembered throughout the generations. If any of you saw the YouTube video.
Okay, they remember it throughout generations. This is not forgotten about. This really happened to my family just recently on Memorial Day. We were in Oregon trying to visit what would have been my great grandparents' grave, and it got covered by really hard rock over the course of a lot of rain and a lot of dirt, and people walking by it to the point where people didn't see it anymore. People were walking by it like it was sidewalk. We couldn't find it. They couldn't find it. Like the people who owned the cemetery for a really long time. And that was a really bad look. It had been forgotten about. It wasn't protected. It was just this kind of plot of land that became dirt. That's not what's happening here. This is honorable. This is remembered for a long time. So if you are an Israelite, you're thinking, wait a second. This is like the first land of the promised land. It's deeded. It's ours. It's a little bit of it, but it's ours. So it's this little taste of the fulfillment of the promise. It's just this little reminder God is giving them the land. And again, because of the patriarchs who are buried there, that cave would have symbolized the many patriarchs who died in faith without seeing the fulfillment. Like they hear the promise, but they don't see it. They don't see the fulfillment of it, but they die in faith and are buried there in Machpelah. That's Genesis 23. I think it has significance to our walk as Christians today, which is how I want us to close these last 5 minutes with. But don't let me rush it here before jumping to application. You know I like to apply. Do you have anything else here on Genesis 23? Okay, then think about this question with me as we look back at Hebrews 11. Think about the faith of Abraham in Genesis 23, what we've seen today, and how it applies to us as Christians today. I'll go ahead and read what's on the screen there. Hebrews 11, verses 13 and 14. These all died in faith, not having received the promises, having seen them afar off, were assured of them, embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. For those who say such things declare plainly that they seek a homeland. Verse 15. And truly, if they had called to mind that country from which they had come out, they would have had opportunity to return. Verse 16, but now they desire a better, that is, a heavenly country. Therefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. That's exciting. That is written to us today, Christians, and our faith that we have, based on the faith that we just read about and are continuing to study in the book of Genesis. So having these things in mind, Hebrews 11 and this whole study of Genesis up to chapter 23, the 23rd chapter specifically, what do we learn? What can we apply to our faith as Christians today? Maybe not necessarily burial practices or how much to pay someone for a funeral, but our walk as Christians today. We're supposed to learn from his faith. What do we learn? Megan?
It makes me think Abraham buried his wife in a land that wasn't technically his, but he had hope in the promise of God that his wife would be buried in a land that was his, that became his family's.
Oh.
And so we live our lives and die in a faith that we are living in a promise that God has made, that we will be in a promised land that doesn't seem real to us yet. And we have faith that when Christ comes again, we will be in a promised land that is ours when we are raised to new life. So the idea of being buried in a land that isn't your own, but having faith that in the future it will be yours, you will be raised. And I just think his action of burying Sarah there mimics our faith that we will be too raised in a new life in a new promised land.
Absolutely. He's got a piece of it. He's got a piece of the promise, which we absolutely do today. But it'd be a weird thing to do if you didn't think the promise would be fulfilled. So we've got a piece today as we die in faith. Like that was my first one. Faith even in death. When you know someone, a Christian, they die in faith, how is it that we can mourn as those who have hope? How is that possible? It's not just wishful thinking. It is faith in the ultimate promise that they're looking forward to in Hebrews 11. Not just physical land, but this heavenly city that's prepared. We mourn with hope because we believe in that promise of resurrection. Tim?
Just a reminder, this is post the sacrifice. Chapter 22 was Isaac being sacrificed. Our hope is after Jesus' sacrifice.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, good. Yeah, so there's the spared sacrifice of Isaac that kind of really does show God's hope and his intention for the future, and that's just a little bit compared to what we have on this side of our Savior. Very good. Good. What else? Our life as Christians today from Genesis 23. That reference on the board is 1 Thessalonians 4. We remember the verse, we do not mourn as those who do not have hope. It's a good one to remember, and it's only possible through the sacrifice of our Savior. The other one I have that we've named pretty well is that we are sojourners too. 1 Peter 2:11 names this very well, just thinking in the same terms as David, like Megan was getting at, we are sojourners in this land. Like we've got like a piece of it, like we're in God's kingdom, but it's not fully realized yet. Because of that, we're going to act a certain way. Abraham could have been really prideful with how he acts here because of the promise that had been given to him. But instead, he still acts as a sojourner and lives a certain way. Finally, the burial cave points to our hope of resurrection and promises. We're out of time, but 1 Corinthians 15 is the first importance that Jesus died, was buried, and was raised. So if Abraham had faith in the promises of God after the spared sacrifice of Isaac, if just that was enough for him to believe and die in faith, then how much more should our hope of resurrection be if we're on this side of the cross, on this side of resurrection? It's quite exciting to think about what God has in store for us next. If Abraham has faith enough to buy this cave, has faith enough that this land is going to be filled all around it, and how much more then, as we live as sojourners, should we be excited about what's coming next and be faithful that when we die in faith, we have that hope of heaven that's coming next. Genesis 23 has lots and lots of impacts of our faith today as Christians. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. Keep reading. We'll be in Genesis 24 next week, back with Dan.